Hello and welcome to my retro watches. Yes, that is another Phoibos box you see in front of you. These are becoming my favourite micro brand, and they've been in touch yet again with yet another new model. This one is called the Apollo. It's actually version 2 of the Apollo, but it looks absolutely nothing like version 1. So let's have a look at the watch that's in the box. The usual paperwork, and there we have it. Interesting, to say the least. Now, of course, I'll do the usual. I'm going to go outside, do the normal shots of these sort of watches, tell you about the specs. But what is most striking, obviously, apart from the hands, is this crown at 8. And you know what? That's actually what drew me to reviewing this watch, because in theory it's a left-handed watch and I'm left-handed. I have 200 plus watches and none of them are left-handed at all. None of them have got a crown here. I've never actually had a watch on my wrist with the crown facing my hand like the vast majority of you guys out there. I believe the left-handed percentage in the world is something ridiculous, like 2% of the population. I don't know. So perhaps Phoibos may be limiting their audience, unless some of you right-handed people are interested in an unusual place for a crown. But at first glance, it's definitely striking. It's possibly one of the most striking Phoibos. I do like Phoibos for this. They do everything themselves. And okay, this has a very interesting handset, one that I don't know whether everybody will like or not. It's definitely striking, but it's got like a layered dial, which is particularly interesting. It's got a nice bezel, nice crown guard as well. It's solid, well made as per usual. I just still can't quite get over that. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So let's move swiftly on, get it out in the daylight, tell you a little bit more about the specs and what powers this watch. Here we are out in my back garden, out in the daylight, to show the true colours of this watch. And the blue they've used on this dial, I actually think is just lovely. Now then, let's kick off with the dimensions of the Apollo, because it is quite a big watch. The case diameter is 41 millimeters, but the bezel does overhang where the castled profile is, and as a result of that, the overhang takes it to 42 millimeters, so a definite big boy there. The case thickness is 13 millimeters, and the lug to lug is 48. But the bracelet's got male end links, and male end links at its longest point is actually making it 53 millimeters. It doesn't sit really easy with me, 53 millimeters, a bit too big perhaps. The lug width is 22, and the bracelet also does not taper, and that is going to make this also a real heavy watch. I've got 7-inch wrists. This is sized and it's weighing in at 181 grams, which is around 6.385 ounces. On to the dial then. So the dial on this version of the Apollo is actually quite interesting. It does take a bit of getting used to. I've had this on and off my wrist for a few weeks now, and like all watches, it's grown on me to the point that I now actually quite like it. It's a sandwich dial, which gives it some depth. The triangle at 12, 3, 6 and 9 are all painted on in Lume, and then the other dot markers are recessed into the light blue ring and are also lumed. It's an interesting mix that's been executed quite well. The middle part of the dial is just that darker blue. It's flat. The Phoibos Octopus logo is printed on at 12, and then of course you've got automatic and 200 meters at the 6 o'clock position. There is the blue chapter ring, which weirdly has a north, east, south and west marker. I'm not sure why they're there, given this is a dive style watch, but then again it's also a space theme, so maybe it's to do with that. Fortunately though, they are quite subtle, and if I'm honest, when I'm wearing it, I don't notice them unless I go looking for them. And now on to the handset, because I know that this may split opinion. So the Hour Hand is a large circular pointer, and it's reminiscent of pointer hands that I've seen on some really old vintage watches. That being said, this one is a heck of a lot bolder than those. Perhaps it's representing a moon or a planet to go along again with that Apollo space theme. The minute hand is a large skeletonized sword hand that again is fully lumed, and the second hand is a tapered down to a point. It's loomed sufficiently at the end to see it against that blue background. It's definitely a unique design, this handset, and typically Phoibos, pushing the boundaries of the design envelope to the max to see what's going to work. 10 out of 10 for effort. Just not sure everybody's going to enjoy that handset, if I'm honest. The bezel is unidirectional with 120 clicks per rotation, and the insert is ceramic, and it's all loomed on the markers there. So talking of the loom, let's give it a loom shot. A lovely, powerful BGW9 that gives off that blue hue. Again, suits this dial colour to a T. Phoibos state that this has got 15 layers. I'm still mystified on how they achieve that. I'd love to know how they do that. This loom also goes for ages, as all the Phoibos watches I've seen so far. So you won't have any problems being able to read this one at night. Now onto the case finishing. It's a subject that's pretty close to my heart and one that I like to scrutinise. Never can find a fault with Phoibos, to be honest with you. They execute this very well, so they've got their machining down to a fine art, that's for sure. There is no polished surfaces on this watch whatsoever. Probably a good thing on a big hefty thing like this, because let's face it, polished surfaces are always fingerprint and smudge magnets. Now on the sides of this case, it's vertical brushing, very, very well executed. On the lugs and on those really cool crown guards, it's radial finishing. The screw down crown is shot blasted. I still can't actually make my mind up whether this crown is actually titanium, because it just feels completely different to all the other metals that I've touched on this watch, but possibly it's just because of the shot blasting. Of course, there's the Phoibos logo that is embossed onto the end, which is now pretty much standard on all watches. Great feature to have, though, all the same. The case back on this one, well, it's a little disappointing by Phoibos standards. So far, Phoibos have managed to blow me away with the models that I've seen with their case backs. They're always highly detailed and quite embossed or engraved. However they do it, I'm not too sure. But on this one, we've got this printed Rocket Man. Now, okay, this was the same caseback design that was on the Apollo version 1, but personally, I'd like to have seen a bigger upgrade, kind of keeping up with the Phoibos standards. This almost feels to me like it's a step back, certainly compared to those other models. That takes us on to the bracelet, which is a H-link design. It's all brushed very nicely on all faces. It's got screw pins for adjustment. Now, it is solid stainless steel, and it's got no taper, so it's got some heft to it. And that lack of taper, I don't know, I prefer a taper on a bracelet personally, but I can understand why it's not on this one, because it's clearly to distribute the weight to keep the head of the watch in better position on your wrist. So we then go down to the clasp, which is a fold over safety catch. It's got double pushers to release. It's only got 3 micro adjust holes. I think that is the bare minimum, to be honest with you. You can find a size for you with 3, but 4 would have been better, or even more would be nicer on a big piece like this, that's for certain. The crystal is a piece of flat sapphire, and it's got 3 layers of anti-reflective coating. So let's have a look at that on my wrist now in the garden. Now, as a left-handed person, I'm really pleased to try this out, but even for me, the crown at 8 is taking some getting used to. According to Wikipedia, 10% of the world's population is left-handed. Now that is a percentage that's far smaller than I actually assumed. I really did think it was a lot more than that. I'm pleased that Phoibos has made a watch for us lefties and for people who like to wear their watch, of course, on their right arm. The irony of that, of course, is that for anybody wanting to wear this on their left hand will experience what all of us lefties have been experiencing for years and years and years, with a crown pointing up your arm. Now, whilst the crown winds clockwise when you pull it out, because it's on the other side of the watch, it's really confusing and it actually feels a little bit unnatural. And I end up taking the watch off the wrist, because that's how I'd always change the time being a lefty, and turning the watch round. So I've then got the crown on the right, so to speak, to actually wind it or change the time. So I'm completely accustomed to having a right-handed watch. It's a real dichotomy, and but either way, it's fun, and it's nice to have a left-handed watch in the collection. Right, before I cut back to the bench to talk about the movement, I'll put up on the screen now the 5 different colourways to this watch. Now, 4 of them, which is including the blue one here, is $320, which is around about £245, and the red, white and blue one, that's $350, and the reason for that is all the white surfaces are actually lumed, so it glows a lot more. There is videos of that on YouTube already, I believe. Now, with all Phoibos watches, they give you a 2-year guarantee on the movement, and they also give you free worldwide shipping and 30 days no quibble returns if you don't like the watch. So pretty decent of them to offer that. There, of course, will be links down below which you can click and go and check out this watch or any of their other watches. So that's out of the way. Let's go back to the bench. Welcome back to the bench, and now the crucial bit for me is always going to be testing the movements. Now, if you've watched a lot of my reviews recently, the ones with the Seiko NH35 movement, you're going to know that I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship coming in with that, because it always seems to me that it could be regulated a little better than it is, and I'm not too sure whether I should blame the microbands for that. Perhaps they should do some more R&D before they send the things out, but equally, what are Seiko doing too? So I'm going to remain optimistic at the moment. I've not tested this at all yet. Just set the lift angle, as you can see, for 53 degrees. So let's see what we're going to get. Now, obviously, I've muted it so I can talk over it. And here comes the trace. And I think you might know what I'm going to say. Not perfect. Just excuse me, I have to put the lock onto the screen. There we go, we can see it more clearly now. So okay, that is definitely going to be within Seiko's parameters, because I can't remember now what they say about this. It's something like plus or minus 20 to even 30 seconds a day. They always give these really loose tolerances, so a rate of plus 17 in dial-up I guess would be acceptable. It's definitely not acceptable for me. It's quite easy to bring that back in, because what is the worst part? That beat error. Once again, we're looking at a Seiko with a beat error of 0.5. Now, again, in layman's terms, if you guys know nothing about watches, nothing about automatic movements, you're not even going to probably even know what that actually means. But to me, that's still unacceptable. Those lines could be tighter very, very easily, and presumably that rate can be brought in a little bit better. I think I'll do that, and this watch will be working a lot more accurate. But I'm just going to try and change the positions. It's a little bit difficult to do because the bracelet's so big on this watch. So we're going to, well, essentially crown up, which I guess would normally be crowned down, wouldn't it? Let's face it. And we are seeing nice, consistent trace so far. There's no deviation. The rate's still increasing. The beat error's come down slightly, but that is acceptable. I can't see anything dramatic. And this is always the trouble when you're doing these things on the fly. We'll try it in crown down, which would really be crown up. It doesn't even like to get a reading. Here we go. And something is awry there, definitely. No, that is a disaster. Look, straight away we are going crazy. The rate has improved dramatically, but that's false for sure. The beta error's gone AWOL. Just wondering whether it's picking up some vibration somewhere, because they do sometimes. Yeah, there we go. Just needed to adjust it. It's probably getting some resonance somewhere. That's a bit of a relief actually, because for a minute I was thinking that we've got a major problem. So we haven't. That again is still looking reasonably acceptable. The beta error's got worse, but it doesn't seem to look like it. There we go. There we go. It's answered itself. It's come back down to a fairly acceptable level. And lastly then, dial down should always be the best position. And straight away you can see the rate is improving. The beta error isn't. So really you've just got to give it a little nudge, and that should do the trick. All right, so I'm going to give it a little adjustment if I can, and keep your eye on the Timegrapher. Now, I'll also say that I would almost guarantee by doing this yourself, you're probably invalidating your warranty. Phoibos is offering a 2-year guarantee on the movement itself, which is pretty decent. And at these numbers, don't get me wrong, they are completely acceptable. So if you've got a reading like this, your watch is fine. But I think the moment you take your case back off and you start going in there yourself, then quite rightly so, you could knacker something up and then say it wasn't you. And if they find out, you'd be in trouble, of course. So I just want to give the stud a little movement and just see if I can close that beat error. And then this is always the thing, you've got to find which way to go first. So we've closed it quite a lot, but of course you can see now that the rate is climbing, so you could play a little bit of cat and mouse even. So I just need to try and move the regulator. And we're almost back to where we started, aren't we? That's typical. And there we go again. So just try to slow it down. And we're almost there, aren't we? Look, there we go. So let that settle. Now they are really micro adjustments. I'm not too sure what you'll have seen, whether my hands have been in the way, which is highly likely because I couldn't see the camera from where I was. But a few adjustments, as you can see, and that is running absolutely spot on. Look, 0 rate and 0 beat error. Of course, that might change again in some of the positions. It's going to be a bit, again, difficult for me to do that. But there we go. So I can see in that position we're still pretty much okay. And once again, turning it the wrong way. I will never learn after all these years. There we go. So it's just losing a tad of speed there. The rate will decrease slightly when it catches itself up. But overall, yes, I'm happy with that little minor adjustment. So I'll just put the case back on and back to the bench. I'm not sure how to summarize this watch, if I'm honest. I really do like Phoibos. This is my 4th chance of reviewing one of their watches, and I've liked them all so far. The first one in particular, this one here, let me just get it into shot, still one of my favorites. I wear this one a heck of a lot. So much detail in that dial. Yes, there were certain aspects I didn't like about that one, but overall the watch shone through. And this one, in many respects, no exception. You've got to really like that design to want to go out and spend your money on this. Those hands are possibly a bit too out there, in my opinion. I do like the idea, and I like what they're trying to do, but I do think they are just possibly a bit too bold. The north, east, south and west on that chapter ring, I have no idea what they are there for. If this is a diver watch, I can't see when you'd be using that underwater. I guess maybe it's there just to break it up, or it was an idea. I don't really think it works, unfortunately. I do, however, like the dial layout, the sort of layered effect that you've got on there, and of course the Lume, which was particularly good. I like the fact that they've put an NH38 movement in there, so this watch hasn't got a date, and therefore it also doesn't have that ghost position. I've got to give them 10 out of 10 for making a left-handed watch, because like I said at the beginning of this video, there's not many left-handed people in the world, and not many things are out there for us specifically. So yes, there are things that I like about this watch. I don't think it's their best design, but I'm still excited to see what else they're going to do. There's lots of different colors of this one. I've put them up somewhere in the video, and you know, if you are into this look, then go out and buy one. You're not going to be disappointed. It is solid, well made, and you know, the movement, despite my little grumbles, will run well enough to keep this watch going for at least a decade or more, I would say. So that's it really. Thank you very much, Phoibos, for sending this one in. It's been a pleasure to look at it. Let's give it an 8 out of 10. Perhaps they could do better, and we know that they can do better. So I'm sure they'll be watching with interest. Leave your comments down below, people. Phoibos, I know, read them. I read every single one. I'll try to reply to as many as I can. I'll be really interested to know what you're going to say. I don't know what the opinion's going to be. It's going to be an interesting one, because I don't think this watch is going to suit most of my audience, knowing what you guys are like out there. But you could prove me wrong. You might leave some nice comments, who knows. But definitely leave them below. I've got more reviews coming, but I'm now back at the bench actually working properly. I've had some medical issues recently that are preventing me from sitting for long periods of time, and that is still happening actually, but I'm managing to sit and do restorations. So I have got several being filmed at the moment. So for my loyal subscribers who come to watch those videos, you won't be disappointed. Trust me, there are more coming very, very soon. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and I'll see you shortly in the next video. Bye for now.